Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another podcast. I will never get tired of welcoming you to an episode because I have this big smile on my face every single time that I do it. Before we get started into this episode, I wanted to remind you one more time to make sure you put your email on our www.flippingthebarrel.com website. There's a place there for you to put it so that you can stay up to date with everything F2B. I mean, we have so much going on and you do not want to miss any of our updates. So if you haven't done that yet, please do. So to get started into today's episode, we have a very special guest. Her name is Evelyn Vilchez, and she's a general manager of Chevron Energy in Mexico since March of 2017. In this role, she promotes Chevron's key stakeholder relationship in Mexico to help advance the country's hydrocarbon sector and Chevron's interests there. With more than 30 years of experience in the oil and gas industry, she has held several positions from commercial business development and strategic planning with Chevron in several countries like Venezuela, Angola, and the United States. She graduated from Tulane University with a bachelor degree in computer science, in 1986. So we are beyond happy to have you on here today, Evelyn, to share your story. And, thank you for saying yes to our invitation.
No, thank you so much. Thank you to Flipping Barrel for the invitation. Thank you, Massiel. Thank you, Jamie. It's really an honor to be here. And it's going to be fun and it's going to be a first experience for me. So thank you for having me.
We're glad that this is your first podcast. So,
yes.
So Evelyn, tell us a little bit about growing up. You are from a small town in Venezuela called Machiques, which is close to Maracaibo. I think that's where most people know of Venezuela. And it's, Maracaibo is known as, the oil capital of Venezuela. That's where a lot of companies are. That's where a lot of people go work. But how, you actually grew up not necessarily in an oil field family, but because your parents actually own cattle and a ranch business. And that's kind of like the area that you grew up in, a lot of outdoors and cattle business, nothing to do with oil and gas. So can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and kind of what was life like growing up in Venezuela?
Well, it was wonderful to grow up in Venezuela. I was blessed to be the older daughter of in my family of three daughters, a wonderful father and mother, and we really grew up as very outdoorsy, very open in terms of talking to people, and grew up like growing up in a small town made it feel like a huge family. So we knew everybody. We knew the butcher. We knew the teachers. We knew everybody. So, and everybody knew my family. It was all about communicating and talking to everybody and helping people. So it was
very
good.
Different from now with cell phones and social media. Mm-hmm. We don't even know our neighbors. You don't even talk to the neighbors.
Nothing like that. We played a lot outside, rode horses. I went to school in my bike. It was very safe. So being a small town, it was very safe. It was a different Venezuela. So it was the Venezuela of the 1970s. Everything was about progress, and there was a well-established security. So no issues, no security issues. So we were a lot outside and having fun and just being kids. So that was great.
Can you tell us a little bit more about growing up in the country in a generation where women weren't really pushed to study engineering, let alone join the oil field? And you mentioned when we spoke that most women and men had very distinguished roles out in society and at the home. So that was one thing that was very common. And you ended up going into engineering. So how did you overcome that mentality and pursue a career in engineering when first you came from this small town, was very homey, very, like you said, like you rode your bike to school, everybody knew everybody, to then, becoming where you are today and studying engineering, like there had to be some hurdles that you had to overcome in order to really feel that you had that confidence to do that.
Yeah. So I didn't plan to study engineering. I wanted to study architecture, but there was not a private architecture school in Venezuela. And so my dad talked me into, well, what else can you study that can help you maybe get close to architecture? So I started studying in Venezuela. I never thought I was going to study abroad. So started studying civil engineering because that's what I thought it was going to get me closer to architecture. And then in my first semester, I struggled with my English class. So my dad was getting 3 treatments for his arthritis in New Orleans. And he said, well, why don't you come to New Orleans, study English in that university that I know, and that will help you with your English. You spend the summer there, and then you come back so that you can do better in your English classes. So I came to Tulane, ESL, English as a Second Language. I studied English there. And by the end of the summer, I had not finished the course. So I convinced my dad to let me finish the English training. And I was going to stay the fall semester to complete my English training. And then during that fall, I passed the TOEFL, I passed the Michigan, I passed the SAT, and I registered in the School of Architecture in Tulane. So I went back home. Everybody was ready to welcome me back to Venezuela. And we had a party, we had Christmas, we had New Year's. And then after like January 2nd, I told my dad and my mom, hey, we need to talk. I registered in Tulane in the architecture school. That's what I want to do. I want to go to school there. So my mom started crying and fighting and telling me that I was crazy. I was 17 years old.
Wow.
And you know, we didn't have anybody in Louisiana. So it was, for my mom, it was a crazy idea. I talked to my dad more in detail. My dad was more like objective, and he said, okay, what is it that you want to do? So I explained the plan. I told him, you know, I had a dorm reserve. That's what I wanted to leave. We talked about cost. It was a lot more expensive than studying in Venezuela. So he said, okay, let's give it a try. It will be hard for us from the financial perspective, but let's give it a try. So I came back to Louisiana and started my semester. And in that semester, I took Computers 101. And when taking that class, I decided that that's what I wanted to be. I was sure as a 17 years old a person that I wanted to be a computers engineering. So I switched to computers engineering in my second semester, and that's what I graduated from. So I have a bachelor degree in computers engineering that really I never put to use, but I completed my degree.
Wow. I think it just shows how life has a weird way of working out sometimes, because, you know, when you were in Venezuela, since there wasn't any architecture, you went into civil engineering, which was the closest thing. Then your dad just happened to have to go to the States. You go along, you finally have a university where you can study architecture, and then you switch into, you know, computer science. What advice do you have? Because this happens quite a bit to a lot of young people, where they think that this is what they want to do for the rest of their life, and then they go into a few semesters and they realize, I don't want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you switch. But at the time when you're switching and trying to figure out, you feel like not that it's the end of the world, but like you're wasting so much time when you see your friends who are just finishing their degrees and they're going into their profession. And then there's, those other students that are just like, gosh, I don't know where to go. I don't know what I want to do with my life until you kind of figure it out. What advice do you have for those, maybe even your own children, that are going to go through college?
Yeah, so this is the advice that I give to my kids and to my younger mentees. Life always change, and we always have a mindset, but we need to be ready to change. We need to be ready to adapt, and we need to prepare for those changes. So I thought I was going to be a computer engineer and probably be programming for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoy studying computers. And at the time, it was all these big mainframes, big rooms, and a lot of coding, machine coding, and all of that. And I started working in Venezuela in a small group of companies. And I worked as a programmer, I think, for maybe 3 months. And then the work started taking me to a more business side. And, I just took the opportunity and went ahead and started working on what was needed. And I was not programming anymore. I was doing a lot of business development for a conglomerate of agricultural equipment sales. So it's what was needed for the work, and I just adopted a growing mindset and started learning at work.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that, because after you graduated, you went back to Venezuela. And as you said, you went to the financial world, working for this equipment company, and you were doing very well with no intentions to really go into oil and gas. You're having a lot of success. You were in your 20s. And then in 1997, the country actually opened up to IOCs to come in. And that's when you decided to change roles and apply to Chevron, which is very different than anything that you had done in your past or even had, thought of. What made you decide to make the switch of industries? And, a lot of people have this perception of oil and gas, it's a negative. What were your feelings at that time in 1997 when these IOCs came? What was the perception of oil and gas then?
So in 1996 started the Apertura Petrolera. That was the name of the process of opening in Venezuela, and all sort of international IOCs and smaller companies came back to the country to start partnering with PDVSA, the national oil company, to help develop the oil and gas industry in Venezuela. So it was a big opportunity. Venezuela was producing, I don't remember the exact amount of barrels, but the target or the objective was to duplicate that production. So it was a huge opportunity for companies, and it was a big opportunity for people to get different jobs and start working for international companies. So I was working at a financial investment group at the time. It was a small group that invested with a technical partner and with the petrochemical side of the national oil company as partners in joint ventures to develop petrochemical projects. So I was doing all the investors relations and all the financing for those projects. And it was very interesting job, but I was reaching a ceiling for growth. So I saw moving to oil and gas as an opportunity to grow and to learn. And I took my chances and I applied and won a job with Chevron in 1997.
And did you have any perceived notions of who Chevron was, or did you know anything about them?
Yeah, I remember my my in one of my interviews. I mean, the interview process was of course complex, long. We had a set of probably 3 or 4 interviews, and I remember in one of the first interviews, I was asked, "What do you know about Chevron?" I said, "Well, I know Chevron is that company that has the triangles." That's what I knew. And then another guy asked me, "What do you know about oil?" I said, "Well, I don't really know a lot about oil. I know Venezuela is a big producer of oil. It's the main industry in Venezuela. I know oil is black.
Yeah.
And I know it's used to produce gasoline and all the refined products. I knew more about the refined products than oil per se." So that was funny because after I was hired, I got a card and a set of samples of oil from this engineer that said it was like liter containers of liquid, and it had green, clear, brown, red, black liquid on it. And then he said, "Not all oil is black."
I love that. That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
How
But
awesome.
I didn't know much about oil when I started.
I think that's very common for a lot of us, unless their family, had been in oil or like second, third generation of oil and gas. I mean, Jamie and I didn't know anything about oil either. Like, I probably didn't even know the color, to be honest. So, let's talk a little bit about that journey once you started with Chevron. Let's talk about the importance of sacrifices and also just how you react to challenges when they're thrown at you. Because you had a big challenge thrown at you on your first day when you first got to the office. You had just had a baby and you walked into the office and you said, "Hey, I'm here. Like, this is my first day." And they kind of looked at you and they said, "This is not your office. You're in the Caracas office, not in Maracaibo, which is another city." And you, at that moment, I mean, tell us a little bit about kind of what happened. You called your husband and you thought that, this is it. I mean, I can't go. It's in another city. I mean, just, how did you handle that? And tell us a little bit about that day.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's funny. After all those 3 or 4 interviews, I went to my first day at the job in Maracaibo, and that happened. I got there. I see my boss. "Good morning." And then she said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, it's my first day in the work. It's my first day. I'm waiting for HR to tell me where, I'm going to be sitting and my office and all of that." And then she said, "You're waiting for HR. Hold on just a second." She came back and she said, "Oh my God, Evelyn, I'm so sorry. I don't think anybody told you the job that we're offering is not here, it's in Caracas." So, I wanted to cry, but I didn't cry there. I said, "Oh my God, my baby is 3 months old." So I cannot, I didn't know anybody in Caracas and cannot move. So I said, "Okay, I cannot move to Caracas." So I went back home. I was crying all the way because it was like a change I wasn't expecting. And then, like all the changes. And then got home and called my husband and said, hey, the job is in Caracas. And nobody had told me. He said, so you don't want the job? I said, no, I want the job, but it's in Caracas. How am I going to do that? And so he came home and he said, so if you want the job, can you talk to somebody to see, are they going to help you move to Caracas? Or what are the things that, how can we make it work? I will take care of Jorge with the help of your mom. And if you can come over on the weekends, and I think we can make it work. Let's give it a try. So he told me, go back, talk to your boss and see how you can make it work. So the next day I went to the office, talked to my supervisor, and we got to an agreement. I was going to travel to Caracas from Monday through Thursday, stayed at a hotel that was by the office. Chevron was going to pay for that, and I was going to come back to Maracaibo on Thursday and stay there for the weekend. So that was the plan for a year. So we did it. I started traveling to Caracas with a lot of remorse because I was leaving, my kid and my husband in a different city for 4 days. It was a different time, no FaceTime, no Teams, no capability to have video conference. So even though I missed a lot of firsts for Jorge, I never saw his first teeth come out. I never saw his first giggling of, saying mom or dad or whatever word he said. I missed it, but I got the second, and I got a good second or a good third. And the time I got to spend with him over the weekends made up for the time I missed during the week. I cannot ever say how important was that conversation with my husband, getting his support, not only on supporting me to go do what I wanted to do, but also on agreeing to, taking care of the responsibility of, what was supposed to be, the mom's responsibility to take care of the kid. And between him and my mom, they cover for me while I was working and earning a position in Chevron. So we didn't do that for the whole year. The project and the business position moved to Maracaibo 9 months later. So I moved back to Maracaibo. The position moved back to Maracaibo, and I started working with Chevron in Maracaibo then. So
what I think is so important about this part in your journey is that you went back and you yourself thought, there's no way I can do this. But your husband was your mentor, your supporter in this moment. And he was like, we can make this work. And then come to find out, it wasn't even a year. It was only 9 months. And you were able to come back to your city, which I think a lot of times when we get these opportunities, we are not patient enough. And we think, oh my God, it's going to be a year. I need to quit. I can't do it. And let alone you continue to do it. You had the support, and it was a shorter time frame than you thought in the beginning. What advice can you give to those who have that kind of quick reaction? Because there's a lot of us that just are like, I can't do it, and then they don't have that mentor or sponsor or somebody to give them that advice to hold back. Is there anything that you have learned through that time that you could share?
Yeah. So I think it's really important that you take time to make your decisions and don't make them on your own. So it was my husband who helped me make the decision. And, you know, it was a decision that we were going to give it a try. If there would have been any issue and he wouldn't have been able to take care of Jorge, or, you know, our own relationship would have been bad, then, you know, I would have made the decision to go back early and quit Chevron and find another job. But we made it work. And also Chevron was very flexible. And if Jorge was sick, I could, you know, that week not go to Caracas and stay in Maracaibo. Or also, you know, PDVSA, who was my main stakeholder, also had offices in Maracaibo. And there were things that I could work with PDVSA in Maracaibo. So sometimes we arrange for meetings to happen in Maracaibo on Monday and Tuesday, or Wednesday and Thursday. And my stay in Caracas was shorter. It takes two to tango, you know, and it's that was a first call from Chevron for me to make a decision that I needed to change to adapt to what Chevron needed. But also Chevron has been flexible from the get-go, and also helped me with the flexibility to be able to do the work, to learn, to adjust, and you know, thrive in difficult times. So there is always a saying in my family that says the river has two shores, so make sure you look at both shores when you're making a decision. So there is always two perspectives to things. So make sure you include all the perspectives when you're making a decision. And another advice that I can give you is don't look only at the challenge when you are posed with an opportunity. Just you know, look at the rewards that opportunity can bring you to. It's always trade-offs, right?
I love that.
So actually, tell us about another kind of situation that happened where you probably had to use some of this advice and kind of look at the opportunity and the advantages and, you know, pros and cons. So in 2003, you got your first international assignment, which you were very excited about because, you know, now it's time to leave Venezuela, go somewhere else and expand your knowledge. But right when you got that opportunity to move overseas, you found out that you were pregnant with your second child. And you remember saying, I can't take this assignment. I mean, I'm pregnant. There's no way that the company is going to be okay with still offering me this opportunity because I'm going to be on maternity leave. So you felt that the second that the company would find out that you were pregnant, that maybe they would say, you know what, never mind, we're going to not do this international assignment. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of what happened next and why were you feeling that way, where because you were going to have another baby, you felt like you weren't deserving of that opportunity?
Yeah. So in Venezuela, the law is favors a really long maternity leave. I mean, it's great. I think it's 6 months, but it could be even up to 9 months. Because you can add vacation time and some paid leave time to it. So there was, I don't know if there is the same law in Venezuela, but there was this, the companies were always against, you know, promoting or helping professionals, female professionals, you know, to grow if they were pregnant, because they knew that they were going to be absent for a long time and all of that. So it's like a preconceived idea that I had in my mind. So I get this opportunity to go overseas. I posted for a job. I earned the post. It was a very competitive thing, and I found out that I'm pregnant. So in my mind, it wasn't fair, to take the position and knowing that I was going to be away for at least 6 months, because I would carry my Venezuelan payroll policies. So I go back to my boss. It was a Cuban expat in Venezuela. And I go back to my boss and said, yeah, boss, I'm very happy about the opportunity, but I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. So he said, what? And then I said, well, I'm pregnant. And then he looked at me and he said, so in Venezuela, if you're pregnant, you're not going to work anymore? I said, no, I'm going to work, of course. But, there is the maternity leave and all of that. I said, oh, come on. That's not an issue. That will be okay. I mean, you'll take your time and we'll be supportive. And then he said, and then you're going to Houston. You'll have a gringa there. So that's fine.
Oh, man. What a response. I love it.
Yeah. So I took I took his word for that and accepted the job, and it was a great opportunity and a even bigger challenge for all of us, because my husband was a rancher. He had a cattle rancher. You could not move that business.
Yeah.
So he said, how long is this going to be? So it was a 3 years job, an offer for 3 years. So I said, oh no, it's only going to be 3 years. We'll be back in 2006. And he said, okay, I can travel, right? So I can go back and forth between Machiques and Houston. And I'll get some blackberries. That's what the technology was at the time. And we'll get some video with the person that I will leave in charge of the ranch and the pharmacy. He used to have a veterinary pharmacy in Venezuela. So so we took off. We moved to Houston, and the plan was for him to travel, every 3 months for a month and come back, do the business between Machiques and Houston. That's also coincided with the time when things started to get
difficult,
bad in Venezuela from a political perspective. The economy started to decline. That was after the big PDVSA, how do you call that? When they stopped working?
Like strike?
Like strike. And the government started imposing more restrictions for businesses and all of that. So after a year of going back and forth, and after, I had Camila and everything, I was learning my new role in global gas. I was learning about LNG and liquefied natural gas markets and a total new thing. Jesus said, I don't think I want to go back so often anymore. So she started thinking on ways to digitalize the business, and so he could go less often to the ranch. And after 3 years, I got another role in Houston, and another after that in Angola, and another after that with Trinidad and Venezuela, but traveling and Brazil, but traveling from Houston, not as a resident. So after like 8 or 10 years, he decided to sell the ranch and switch jobs and started his own business here in the United States. So
talk
with
about
that,
timing and luck, a little bit of luck in there, because without knowing where the country was headed, he supported you from the beginning without knowing that Chevron was going to be your way out. So it's rewarding that he bet on the right thing, which was support you early on. And so that's a great story.
Yes, all the time. I mean, he's been supported all the time, and I'm really fully appreciative of that all the time. When I was here, when we first moved, and after the pregnancy, I got sick of gastritis because of stress. The remorse of moving him from his world to just getting him out of his world to just accompany me chase this opportunity created so much a sense of false remorse, because he was happy, he was supportive, he wanted for us to be successful here. So but it's just what it was. And I created as some sort of thing in my stomach that I couldn't eat a lot. But
the stress of
all that is in the past. All
that
that is in the past. And we've been in Houston on and off from different assignments for 19 years now.
Wow.
And so we are.
Evelyn, tell us about your current role now. So like I mentioned in your bio, you are the country manager of Chevron in Mexico, still based in Houston, but you represent Mexico and Chevron. You got this role in March of 2017, which I think, now we're in 2022, the things have changed. I think there's a lot more females leading businesses. It's more known. I think in 2017, I mean, there was a lot of change, but I don't think it was as pushy as it is now. Mexico is a very difficult country because of just, what they call machistas and the old school where, women still stay home, or women, definitely are running businesses here. How was that when they told you, like, hey, you're going to be the face of Chevron in Mexico and you're going to be the, the manager, the country manager? How did you feel about that? Was there a little bit of resistance on your end, knowing that you were going to go lead this company in such a country? And then kind of, how has it been? Was it very accepting from the beginning, or do you think it's, it took a little bit of years for it to change?
Mexico has a reputation for it's a cultural thing, right? So, but it's not very different than anywhere else in Latin America or any other countries, like in Africa, or So I grew up like that. So I grew up like I'm a girl, so I was supposed to be a housewife and a mom, not a professional. A professional was always like, maybe like a plus. Por si acaso is what my dad told me once. Yeah, it's okay. You can study computer engineering por si acaso. So por si acaso means just in case, and just in case is he had a plan that I was going to be, a housewife and a mom, and then but por si acaso that didn't happen like that. It was okay to have a degree, but it was not the common thing. And in Mexico, the culture has been like that always. So there are very clever bright professional women, and there are very bright and good women leaderships. Not too many though, and I think it has um, to do with the way we are raised in Latin America. We are raised to support the man. We are raised to be submissive to a hierarchical man-led organization. So it's changing slowly, and women are daring more, and women in Mexico are daring more. I haven't seen any real machismo within my group of work. I also happen to be the president of AMEXI. AMEXI is the Association of Oil and Gas companies in Mexico. So a lot of men-led companies are members of AMEXI, and it's a very high level professional group, and I haven't felt any machismo through it. But it's also probably I'm trained to deal the same with females or males, or it's all about building the relationships, building the trust based on your performance and how you deal with the issues and how you do your job. So if you are a good performer and you do the right things at work, then you earn the trust of everybody, females and males, and then you can lead them, right? It's also about understanding and knowing who you're working with and respect the way they work. So there are not so many female leaders in Mexico, but I don't think there are not so many female leaders anywhere in the world in the oil and gas industry either. So I don't think it's about Mexico. I think there is a history of male leadership in the oil and gas industry that is changing. I have seen a lot of females growing to be better leaders in different organizations. There is a lot of room for growth. I want to see more female stepping up and taking leadership roles. I want to see more men advocating for their females mentees or for the females that work for them. It's very hard because we all have biases, and it's very hard to change a mindset that has been with you for such a long time. I'm working with different groups in Houston and in Mexico to promote females, to get ready to move up, to get ready to lead, to make sure that they understand themselves, that the knowledge that they have, the experience that they have had makes them capable of leading big groups or small groups. So it's about, I don't think it's about Mexico. I don't think it's about the oil and gas industry. I think it's about history, culture, and and very important, we need to make it happen. We need to push for it. And it will not happen in a snap. We'll need to prepare, and we need to work for it. So it takes time.
That was beautifully said, and 100% true on every front. And we really, really appreciate you coming on, Evelyn, today to tell us your story, your journey, how you overcome it, and your advice too. I mean, this ending advice is just like exactly what we need, and on not just our space, but just every industry across, the sector. And we just are really, really grateful to have you on and have you share that with our listeners. And thank you so much, Evelyn, for everything that you're doing and supporting women and men in the industry. So thank you.
My pleasure. I don't know if we have come up to the end of the interview. That sounded like we're ready for you to close. So I just want to say once again, thank you to you for the invitation. I'm really honored to be here. I don't think I had ever had an opportunity to be heard by so many people, and so many people that I don't know, because I know that Flipping the Barrel, it's continues growing, and a lot of people continues listening to the podcast. So thank you for listening to us, and thank you for the opportunity to share my experience. I everything I said is my life.
Well, thank you so much, Evelyn. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Evelyn.